Since the Dark Universe is well past dead, maybe now we can get some proper new adaptations of Universal monsters.
The Invisible Man takes place in the present day, when a young woman escapes her abusive boyfriend. Shortly afterwards, he commits suicide, leaving everything in her care. As she tries to move on and recover, she's soon stalked by an entity whom she firmly believes is her boyfriend, cloaked by invisibility.
For some reason, Universal seemed to really struggle with remaking or rebooting their classic monsters roster.
Dracula Untold was a weak attempt at kickstarting a cinematic universe, and The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise, was an even more pathetic misfire. However, Universal was adamant about getting this franchise off the ground. They even had Javier Bardem confirmed as Frankenstein's monster, Angelina Jolie as the bride, and Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man. However, it quickly became evident that this was never going to pan out, so they ditched the idea altogether. Jason Blum of Blumhouse Productions expressed interest in making new entries in the Dark Universe, and even though that franchise went out to pasture, he still wanted to be a part of adapting Universal's classic monsters. A new adaptation of The Invisible Man was set, with Leigh Whannell brought on to write and direct the project, but no Johnny Depp. Leigh Whannell had been a longtime collaborator with James Wan, having written the script for the original Saw and Insidious movies. He made his directorial debut with the third movie, and then followed it up with the action flick Upgrade.
Having seen that movie, I can tell you that a lot of what made that movie work can be found here. And it translates pretty well.
It's also an example of how the simple way sometimes really is the best way. There's no secret organization trying to contain all the monsters and connect all these characters together. No CGI-induced spectacle, just good old-fashioned intense thrills. The movie begins with a rather clever title reveal, before pushing up to a house on a cliff. The music rises and then silence. This is where we meet Cecilia Cass, played by Elizabeth Moss, as she makes a daring escape from her abusive boyfriend, Adrian Griffin. Griffin is the name of the mad scientist from the original H.G. Wells novel, the man who manages to accomplish invisibility. In this version, he's an optics engineer. The sequence is rife with tension, as she moves quietly through the house, looking to get away before he wakes up.
First and foremost, I have to say that Elizabeth Moss is fantastic in the lead role,
conveying just how abusive the relationship was without going into graphic detail. We can see it on her face the untold horrors that she must have endured. Moss brilliantly displays this as she wakes up and gradually remembers the monster she's in bed with. A car alarm goes off after she takes the shock collar off the dog. Cecilia's sister makes it to her in time as Adrian catches up. Two weeks later, she's staying over at a friend's house, who just so happens to be a police officer.
I swore to your sister I'd get you to step outside my house.
Hey, see, he's not out there. I promise.
Something that this movie does really well is utilizing its sound design and sound editing. And yes, there is a difference. How it uses muffled sound for one moment, and how maybe there'll be complete silence, and then there'll be a very sharp noise, but not a loud noise, not a jump scare noise, but something that contrasts the silence in a major way. Sometimes the movie will be quiet because it wants you to pay attention and listen for any slight creak or tinkle, or any other sound that you may not notice if you weren't forced to focus.
It puts you right in the main character's shoes as she copes with paranoia. In one scene where she's trying to get to the mailbox in an exercise to get out the house, she's terrified by an innocent jogger passing by. The silence from when she goes out the front door to the muffled footsteps and the build-up, it's a brilliant showcase of sound manipulation. Emily, played by Harriet Dyer, comes over to deliver the news that Adrian is dead. Adrian is played by Oliver Jackson Cohen, who's probably most recognizable as Luke Crane in Haunting on Hill House.
He was quite likable in that show, so to see him go from that to being a manipulative villain is an interesting change, even if he doesn't have a whole lot of actual on-screen time.
Cecilia doubts the apparent suicide, since Adrian was a massive control freak and narcissist, detailing the torment she suffered at his hands.
It just doesn't make any sense. He was in complete control of everything, you know, including me. He controlled how I looked and what I wore and what I ate. Then it was controlling when I left the house and what I said, and eventually what I thought. If he didn't like what he assumed I was thinking, he would...
He what? He would hit you?
Amongst other things.
She receives a letter saying that Adrian left her in his will as the sole benefactor, but nobody is supposed to know where she is. Suspicious. At the reading, Adrian's brother Tom acts as attorney.
If there was a chance of physically being close to him, we would not be here for any amount of money.
You are physically close to him. He's in that urn over there.
This is a brilliant moment in hindsight, because who's to say he wasn't in the room and wearing that suit?
Cecilia celebrates her newfound wealth with her friend James Lanier and his daughter Sydney by gifting them a ladder and Sydney a new bank account where Cecilia intends to deposit $10,000 a month for the rest of the year. James is played by Aldous Hodge, best known for portraying MC Ren in Straight Outta Compton, and Sydney is played by Storm Reed, who is a lead in Euphoria and the lead in A Wrinkle in Time. As they celebrate, we cut to a wide shot, indicating that they might not be alone in the house. Another thing this movie does well is pulling the camera back and letting the audience search the frame for anything unusual, such as when Cecilia cooks breakfast and the stove suddenly gets hotter. It's little things like this that confirm that somebody is indeed watching her. Another great example is here at the beginning, where we see the camera pan back to Adrian's bedroom, waiting to see if somebody will come out, waiting with bated breath. Before eventually, we go back to Cecilia, preparing to make her escape.
At its core, this movie is very much a ghost or demon possession movie.
We, the audience, know that the victim is telling the truth, but to an outsider looking in, it seems as if she's just going insane. Things start getting crazy after Cecilia passes out during a job interview, where it's implied that somebody drugged her with diazepam. The same bottle that she lost during the escape is found on her bathroom counter. Accompanied by James, she goes to see Tom to demand that Adrian stops what he's doing.
I don't know how he's done it. He's figured it out, though. He has figured out a way to be invisible. He is a world leader in the field of optics. I know that he could do this. He's not dead. I just can't see him.
Did I mention how good a performance Elizabeth Moss gives in this movie? Because if I haven't, then I'll just mention it again here.
Tom, played by Michael Dorman, also gets a moment to shine, as he regales how glad he is that his brother is dead.
Now, I agree with you. Adrian was brilliant. But it wasn't because of anything he invented. It was how he got in people's heads. You think about it. He came up with the perfect way to torture you, even in death. The only thing more brilliant than inventing something that makes you invisible is not inventing it, but making you think he did. My brother controlled me long before he met you, Cecilia. I hated him. You and I, we got that in common. I was relieved when I heard that he was dead. He's gone, Cecilia. I saw his body. Listen to me. Don't let him win by bringing him back to life.
Knowing how it ends, this is probably where Adrian would get the idea to frame Tom, as he was likely listening in on this conversation as well. Cecilia goes to visit her sister, who brings up an email and amount of money that came from her account, but she never sent. Things get even worse when an invisible force strikes Sydney, but she and James believe that Cecilia did it.
This movie is a fascinating metaphor on how abusive relationships can affect the victim and the people around them.
Cecilia becomes increasingly tired, more deranged, on the verge of cracking. We, the audience, know that this is all Adrian's doing, but that's because we get to be let in on what's actually happening. Everybody else is just watching somebody they know and love fall to pieces. Now all alone, Cecilia goads Adrian into attacking her, and asks why he chose her of all women. Going up into the attic, she finds his phone, keys, a knife, and her portfolio that went missing right before the job interview.
Okay, I just want to say it was kind of stupid of her to take the knife out of the bag and get her fingerprints all over it.
She hears a noise and investigates, then dumps a can of paint to reveal... Unfortunately, the paint slips off before she's able to catch up. We then get one of the most iconic scenes of the entire movie, accompanied by a very industrial and electronic score. Cinematography was done by Stefan Duccio, who was cinematographer for Leigh Whannell's previous movie, Upgrade. The camera work is deliberately stiff, indicating that a machine is in control. Cecilia heads over to Adrian's house, doing her own investigative work. When we do get to see the suit in its glory, it's almost like revealing the costume of a supervillain. The way the cameras adjust after invisibility mode has been turned off, the mechanical yet fluid design of the suit. It's a very good piece of engineering that manages to toe the line between being fake and something that could actually exist.
Since the company that Adrian Griffin is the CEO of, Cobalt, is featured in Upgrade, it's entirely possible that this suit was being developed for military purposes.
Imagine dropping special ops wearing this gear behind enemy lines. Entire wars would be ended within a matter of weeks, days even. Cecilia calls her sister and asks to meet in public, but before she can share what she knows, Adrian frames her for murder in the most shocking moment of the movie.
It's some kind of suit that Adrian has built. And it has cameras and it somehow... What?
I audibly gasp at this part. And the few people in the theater did as well.
Surprise.
Cecilia is put in a mental institute, where Tom tells her that if she signs a statement returning her share of the will to Adrian's estate, she might get a lighter sentence. To make matters worse, Cecilia is pregnant.
Or there's one option where this all goes away. Agree to have the baby and go back to her. You really think he didn't know you were secretly using birth control? You should have known he'd find out. You know him as well as I did.
Knowing that Adrian will never leave her alone, Cecilia decides to take matters into her own hands.
You won't get the baby. And you won't get me. There you are.
Cecilia is able to fight the Invisible Man one more time and exposing him to more people. A final rampage breaks out, with Cecilia stabbing him, but it turns out to be Tom under the suit, and Adrian is found tied up in the walls of his basement. She doesn't buy the story and goes over to Adrian's to try and get a confession. Adrian insists he's telling the truth.
But I'm the only one who can help you. Remember? Because I know you better than anyone else in the world. That shouldn't come as a surprise.
That was the moment he knew he messed up. Also, a little bit out of character that someone who is very much in control slips up at the last second.
She leaves to use the bathroom, and Adrian seemingly cuts his own throat.
Surprise.
When James comes in to investigate, he notices the spare suit in Cecilia's bag.
What'd it sound like to you?
It sounded a lot like he killed himself.
Cecilia walks away, taking a moment to breathe, finally free from Adrian's obsessive, watchful eye.
The Invisible Man is a brilliantly made, disturbingly uncomfortable movie that gives an iconic character a modern update without sacrificing the tenets of said character.
While I do wish it was more of a traditional, straight-up adaptation of the source material, I liked what was done here. The constant presence of being watched, not knowing where the Invisible Man was, it adds a layer of thrills and makes him such a compelling villain.
I will admit, I am hoping we get a more page-to-screen adaptation of the original novel, as we haven't had one in a while.
While the tension rarely falters, there are times where it gets a little too slow-paced. Still, I think there's a lot to enjoy here, prompting multiple viewings at the theater or on Blu-ray.
Alright, that's my review of The Invisible Man. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, this is the Canadian Movie Buff saying, I hope you had a fantastic weekend at the movies. See ya! Now, if you excuse me, I'm off to go to the City of Angels. But in the 90s.